So if I reach out to 60 people in my network, 30 will take the call. Out of those 30 meetings, 2 referrals will happen, and I'll get 2 clients out of it.
All right, today we have Vlad Mukartumian, founder of Logic Inbound. You are a 7-figure SEO agency. You've been at it for 7 years, crushing it. I've known you for, let's say, almost a decade, right? We met through my insurance agent.
Yeah. We originally met, and you had an interesting idea to start a social network because they were hot at the time. I remember that.
We won't talk about it. Anyway, this is my good friend Vlad. He's been in the startup game for a really long time, in the agency game for a long time as well. Kind of run through your background, like in 20, 30 seconds, like all the different businesses you've tried and what you're doing now.
Yeah, sounds good. So I I started with my cousin Hike, who would be awesome to have on this podcast as well. But basically, he actually could code. I didn't know in middle school he developed his middle school's website. He's always doing things that he doesn't tell people about in terms of like technology. Like right now, he's done 3D printing, all these different projects. So it was really cool. But long story short, I found out, and I said, first of all, I said, hey, maybe we could sell books to garage sales to make more money. This is like back in 2006. So we did that. Then basically, I said, Hike, why don't you create an app so we can figure out whether buying a book is worth it or not? So then he did that. Then I said, there's no Bruce Lee quotes on the Android App Store. So we did Bruce Lee quotes. That app got 2,000 downloads in about 2 weeks. So I was like, wow, this thing's going really good. And I said, let's do 30 more of these. We ended up getting 300,000 downloads on the Android App Store, give or take, and 30,000 monthly active users. I was young. I was 19 at the time, about to turn 20, had a big head. Some people would say it's still big today. Basically, graduating college, and I thought, I'm going to be a tech entrepreneur. Unfortunately, I couldn't monetize enough. It's not just downloads or viewers, it's money. So then I said, okay, let me go after the money with a CRM play. So we did a Skyreel. That was a CRM. I did a bunch of cold calls for that. Took that into 15 different brokerages around 5 different states through networking and cold calls, and mainly referral networking we did a lot of. And then that grew to about 5 to 10K a month in monthly recurring revenue, which was great. And if I was patient at the age of 21, 22, I should have stuck with it, and I would have had a successful, I think, CRM company. But I didn't. We were 2 years in, and I was not familiar with the slow growth trajectory that tech companies have. So because they go like this, right? They have like a bell curve. But so instead, we started an agency. First year did like 300K, 500, got hit with COVID, million, 1.6 last year. And this is where I am today. I just blew through 11 years of my life. There you go.
Just that fast.
Yep.
So you're in a pretty fortunate position where your cousin was a technical co-founder in most of these instances. If you didn't have Hike, who we will have on the pod, he's your co-founder as well and partner at Logic Inbound, your SEO agency. How would you go about finding a technical co-founder? Because I feel like a lot of people have a lot of tech ideas, right?
Yes.
But they have no idea where to start or how to execute. So if you say you had a startup idea that required technical experience, technical co-founder, would you go on Upwork and go pay somebody to build an MVP, or would you go on let's say a Discord group and go find a technical co-founder? What would you do?
I wouldn't do that either, actually. And I'm actually part of shout out to Neverland, who Mark Randolph started this awesome support group for entrepreneurs that I'm a part of. And
for the record, he is the co-founder of Netflix.
Yes, the co-founder of Netflix. He's an awesome dude. But anyways, just shouting them out on the podcast for people. You guys should apply to the community and see if you get in. But basically, a lot of people there also have challenges finding co-founders. Today, I actually would not, I don't think, have a problem finding a co-founder. Maybe I would. I don't know, right? It's good. Ideally, right, my first choice is always Hike because we have such a long history. But I watched one of your early episodes, Joseph, right? And these two partners, they started talking about projects they did together. That's exactly, I think, the way you got to do it. You got to do small projects together. Me and Hike, even if you take a look at our history, we did books, then we did an app, then we did multiple apps, then we did a CRM. Now we have an agency, and we've got tools we built, right? And now we're looking at even more ambitious projects, which we're going to start this week. And we're always solving problems. So it's really solving problems and finding someone to solve problems with you. And ideally, right, if you're looking for a technical programmer, is this a technical person, right? And the more you do this, the more history you'll build. And since it's not going to challenge for me today because I know a lot of programmers, right? The reason people don't find co-founders is because they don't have a programmer that's their friend. That's really it. It's like you need like 3 factors. They need to be a programmer, right? They need to be your friend, and you need to be able to get along with them, right? Like Layla Hermosi, shout out to her. She basically talks about these awesome factors about like values, I think mission, so your values and your mission need to be like the same, right? And there's all like slight things, but if you just work on projects together with a programmer, right, who is your friend, who's also interested, that's huge. Last piece here, man, I could talk forever, Joseph. He knows me. Basically, another thing is you've got to be able to sell whatever the heck you're doing. Hike actually at one point, this is my favorite story to tell. After the apps, rightfully so, Hike said, Vlad, I'm not starting a company with you. Right. And this is my cousin, right? I'm like, come on, man. Right. Oh man, like we're going to make $1 billion. Da, da, da. He's like, no, Vlad. He's like, the apps failed. Why would I waste my time? I could have like an engineering job. I could do my own stuff. Right. So what I did is I hacked together my own prototype. So I used HTML. I sold the first client. The first client for SkyReal paid us $1,500, right? A guy named Dan Wingard, great dude, right? And he paid us $1,500. And also I did the first prototype. So if I don't have a co-founder, I'd be able to hack together a prototype. So it's like, hey, technical co-founder, do you want someone that can hack together like the prototype for you, has already got the first customer, paying something, and then last but not least is teaching themselves to be semi-technical, right? That's what I would focus on. And if I couldn't find that technical co-founder, I'd become my own CTO and then find the CEO. That's Vlad's like 90 cents there.
Okay, sick. Gives me a lot to go off of. So where do the hackers, they call, hackers, where do the programmers hang out, right? Because, you mentioned earlier, like if you don't have a programmer friend, then you need to go find one.
I love this question because everybody asks me, where do rich people hang out, right? Where does ABC hang out? Where do the athletes hang out, right? It's where does X hang out is the exact same question as like, where does my customer hang out? You have to do research, right? And once you find one customer, they can show you where the other customers are. So same thing with programmers, same thing with anybody else, right? Got to use a little bit of imagination and then start going to those areas. And if you teach yourself how to code, hint, right, then you'll know where they hang out. You'll know the meetups they attend because there's engineering only meetups, even for amateurs like me, right, who are like on their second coding course, right, are welcome to this meetup. And then you just got to talk about your struggles and hopefully you make an earnest effort to learn how to code. They're a lot more open to that. I'll give you another one in mold remediation, right, is a niche that we're experimenting on right now. Like they love the mold remediation owners, right? Hate it when I talk about, oh, you're a marketing agency owner. But when I talk about like, man, I tried your fog product and I was coughing and I had tears going down my eyes, they start laughing and they love that because that's the same problems they go through, right? So like if you talk to a programmer and say, man, I was hitting my head against the computer trying to do what you do, right? That really quickly earns rapport. So you want to find these meetups and you want to talk about the challenges you're facing trying to be one of them. And, it'll help you befriend them once you find them in the meetups. But there's meetup.com. There's online forums, of course, right? Which I think you can find a co-founder online. It's in a forum, but it's harder if they're not local, obviously, for Rapport. You can throw your own meetups, right? That's something I've done. You can, there's hackathons. There's a lot of programmers at hackathons. It's just the thing is most people don't understand this shit takes years, takes years.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I think a lot of people have a big idea and they kind of want to skip to the part where they've developed this crazy rapport with somebody like you have with Hike and my cousin who you referred to in the first episode, Joe. Isn't it weird that we have the same first name, him and I, and we're cousins?
Your cousin Joe, what?
Joe and I have the same first name.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know you have a cousin with the same first name.
It's like you having a cousin Vlad.
No,
Vlad
I did not
and
know
Vlad. Anyway, so they want to skip ahead. They have this big idea, like you said, billions. They're going to make it on this one, but then they have to basically speed through the relationship with somebody
that doesn't work,
that they've never met before. So it's crazy. Okay, so you mentioned in-person meetups, hackathons, stuff like that. AI meetups, probably a lot of technical people there. You mentioned one in our group chat. And then online forums, like Indie Hacker maybe. I've seen a lot of people on Indie Hacker trying to...
The main thing is, right, it's kind of like getting married, right? Getting, or 2023, some say getting a partner, right? So a man, woman, or whoever, right? Basically getting a partner married. People say, how do I find a marriage partner, right? Because the truth is your first year, you might not even know if your relationship's there, right? People want to find somebody to get married with, right? And it's not that easy, right? If it was, everybody would do it. you got to spend time, right? You go on dates, right? In my world, right? In my business world, right? A date is a small project, right? See, you talk about the project, work through it. Do they deliver? Do they do what they're going to say, right? You might want to read, actually, I'll also say this for maintaining your co-founder relationship or attracting them, read some books on relationships, Win Friends and Influence People. But there's 7 Principles of Marriage by Gottman. I actually bought that as a company book, and it talks about communication during hard times. That's huge, right? How does your co-founder respond during hard times? Like, a huge shout out to Hike. Whenever shit has hit the fan, right? We've had to do layoffs. He is a solid rock. Right. And I'm always the one that I'm like, am I the only one that actually thinks this matters? Like, I'm just everywhere and I'm coming up with all these ideas and I'm taking, all these actions, some random, some very useful, and Hike is like focused. Right. So you want to be able to know, how do you respond during pressured time? Because in the whole game of business, I was talking to one of my other partners actually today about this as well. I said, business is about solving problems. So the more hard problems you guys solve and easy problems along the way as well, right? The better you'll be. Anyways. Yeah.
So you tried these tech companies. We'll fast forward a little. You tried these tech companies. They didn't work out.
Profitably didn't work out.
Profitably didn't work out. And then you got into the agency game.
Yep.
Talk about that.
Great. So they profitably didn't work out, right? Why? For one reason or another. Arguably one could have, right? The CRM company probably could have made it, but I just didn't feel ready, right? And it wasn't growing fast enough for my taste, right? And so I started an agency because everyone was asking us, not everyone, people had asked us in the past before for some like website tips and marketing. And so I did something from James Altucher's book, Choose Yourself, which is I started coming up with 10 ideas a day, right? And to train my idea muscle, right? And I would pitch 10 ideas to business owners every single day about how they can improve their business. And I had no idea what startup I was going to start. But at the time, I was just thinking, hey, if somebody gets me to help them, then maybe I can come up with an idea with Hike to do a tech company on the start. But then I found, I actually, there was kind of 2 clues that showed me that I should do an agency. The first is my friend. There's a guy named Joe here who runs a car dealership. He referred Joe over, and they were a client of ours for social media marketing. We did not do great, unfortunately, but we closed him, right? And for a couple thousand a month, right? The second one was a friend of mine from college. He had that was the second quote unquote potential client, and he had problems with marketing. And I pitched him all these ideas, and he said, "I want you guys. Maybe you guys can help me. Can you guys execute on these?" And I was like, "Yeah, we've ran Facebook ad campaigns. We've done websites. We can help you run these. Right? This is potentially a great opportunity for us. We can do SkyReel marketing." So like the CRM company started turning into a marketing company, and then very quickly from there. Not very quickly, I say very gradually, right? We got a referral, we get another referral, and then we started trying to, figure out how to run an agency.
So how did you get your first customer besides, you talked about how you got Joe from the car dealership and whatnot, but how did you, like from your own outbound, how did you get your first customer?
Oh, it was from my inbound, right? It was from my network. So I went in and I had a friend named Jerry who ran a healthcare company here in Seattle. And I gave him 10 ideas of how they could improve their business, like things they should be doing that I thought were great ideas. I didn't even know his role actually at the time. I thought, maybe he's general manager, maybe he's up there, right? But I just was trying to provide value for people. And then kind of the value found me, That's kind of the key has been for me in life is try to provide value for others, and then you'll be good at creating it, and then people are going to want to pay you. So that's what I did. And today, right, that's what I would continue to do. I would just find people in my network and try to help them that own businesses.
Okay, so you reached out to your friends. You basically texted your network, which is probably just as huge at the time as it is now. We'll talk about your networking escapades. But you just went through and texted people, basically. Everybody you said, hey, this is what I'm offering. Can I do this for you? Do you need help with this?
Yep, that's exactly it. But it's not even what I'm offering. It's the choose yourself method is, hey, Joe, you run a car dealership. I took a look at your website. Here's 10 things that I think are genuinely good ideas that you should do to improve your car dealership, right? I'm going to send them to you. Let me know if you want to meet up to discuss them. I'd love to, obviously I want to be helpful, and I'd love to explore these ideas with you. I just had them, right? And for you, and then you take them out to eat and you talk about these ideas, and that's it. It's not, you give them the ideas first, right? So that's the methodology I used. to start the agency,
Okay. So how many clients did you get from texting your network, and how many people did you text?
Oh, you're going to the marketing right now. So I wasn't that advanced yet, right? I wasn't even keeping track
I
of
want
metrics.
actionable advice,
I love
man. I
that.
want
Yeah, it is.
actionable
It is.
steps.
So today, so I'm talking about me back then, right? And we can get to the actionable stuff today as well. I love that. So the past Vlad wasn't even keeping track of metrics. That's how bad I was, right? I was just like, hey, I'm just gonna try to do like 100 ideas and 15 people, right? Today, I have something called the 60-32 rule. So if I reach out to 60 people in my network, 30 will take the call. Out of those 30 meetings, 2 referrals will happen, and I'll get 2 clients out of it, right? Either them directly or indirectly. 60-32. So that's the metrics today. In the past, if you would have asked me, I would have been like, man, I don't know, dude. Can we even keep the lights on? I don't know, right? So it's that's the difference between me now and then. So today I can speak to the metrics much better.
Okay, so in how long of a period did you text your whole network? How many clients did you get from that? And then we'll talk about what happened afterward.
Yeah, so here's what happened. So I probably 6 to 7 months, but a year and a half in, there was a great guy named Tyler Bennett from who runs a company called Seattle Webworks. He ranked #1 for Seattle SEO, and we merged with him. And so we're on great terms today. He's a great dude. And so we ended up merging with him a year and a half in, and he was doing $20,000 a month, which I thought was like the biggest number in the world. I was like, 20,000? Are you serious? If I get to 20,000 a month, all my problems in the world are solved, right? And so we studied his methodology, and he's the one that taught us about going. He said you should go to networking events. His company already had like existing client list, and his idea was he saw Hike building tools. He said, hey, if we team up, Vlad, you can run sales, Hike, you can build tools. I can help basically operate the thing, right? Like then we can go after bigger clients. So that's basically a year and a half in. That's kind of what we used. We used the network. At the time, a mentor of mine actually thought it was a horrible idea to merge with this guy. But the truth is we didn't know what we were doing, right? And so it's like, if you don't know what you were doing, it doesn't matter how much energy you're putting into something. If you're going left and right all day, you're never gonna get anywhere. So I think it was perfect for us.
Okay, so if you were going to go back and start an agency, what would be the first thing that you did? Say you didn't have your friend from Seattle Webworks.
Well, that's exactly it, actually. I think there's a lot of things to do to start an agency, but the biggest thing is getting referral partners. And so this guy was a great referral partner for us. I remember referring him deals, right? The guy who gave us our initial like 4 or 5 referrals the first year is a guy named Dave being here. He's a great dude here in Seattle. He's a legend in terms of like radio advertising. He took us under his wing as well. Right. So it's going out and building as many relationships with referral partners as you can. And you're going to be taking a lot of people out to eat. The agency game is a game of likability, right? Like people don't, most of the time, right? Especially bigger companies, they don't go on Upwork, at least not yet, right? They don't go on Upwork and they don't look for agencies that way. They go through, hey, who do you know, right? Who do you know? Who do you like? And who seems competent? And that's how they make decisions, right? And it's really interesting, right? People will spend millions of dollars on marketing budget with things like who sounded the best. I don't like the way that guy said that. And they don't really care as much about ROI. It's the sad truth of purchasing, right? But that's the reason people buy Louis Vuitton, right? Because it looks nice and it makes them feel good. Same reason why they choose agency people. So I get a bunch of referral partners. That's what I'd focus on. And the way I'd get them is I go to these events, I'd network. The better you are at networking, the more network you get, and it kind of washes its own hands.
If you wanted to do it in a more scalable way and you were too shy to go to a networking event, what would you do? LinkedIn?
So now scalable way, right? Scalable way is now we're going different tactics, right? Yeah, scalable is you do LinkedIn, right? But you can't be shy in the agency game because it's a face-to-face company, right? If you're shy, you're screwed. I hate to say it, right? Or you partner with someone that isn't shy. Like Hike, he loves talking to people, but he hates talking to tons of people. Me, I could have 10 of these meetings a day, and I'm happy. I'm going to be a little tired, obviously, but then I get up and I'm happy to do 10 of these 10 times a day. Not a problem. So you have to partner. You have to have the right personality for the business, right? If you're not a people person, then you either partner with somebody who is, or you might look at a different business.
Okay. So if you're going to be targeting people on LinkedIn, and let's stick with an SEO agency, who are you hitting up? How are you hitting them up? What's your message to them?
Okay. I love this because I'm actually going to be tomorrow going through 2 small business owners about this LinkedIn strategy, but I'm actually going to be cold calling, but LinkedIn, you can do the same. So the first thing everybody out there needs to know is nobody cares about a system, right, in numbers in a product as much as they care about compelling stories, at least in the beginning of the day, unless you have amazing numbers, which you don't if you're just starting. So what you need to do is you need to have a compelling story. Like my compelling story is my family went bankrupt in '08. So it actually really inspired me to figure out this money problem. And I figured out you can't print money, but you can print leads. And so that's what I've been obsessed with for the last 8 years, right? So basically, that's the story I tell people about myself, right? Because this bankruptcy really affected us. So it's something vulnerable, right? That helps people connect, right? People don't connect with perfect, they connect with vulnerability, and especially in the early days. So you need to think of something, right? Where if you're talking to somebody, like what is something they're going to connect to that is maybe a little bit vulnerable, but still doesn't put you in a horrible light, right? They'll want to work with you, maybe give you a chance and open up. And then once you got that like 2 to 30-second pitch down, then for your company, then basically you go out and then you talk to the people on LinkedIn. Once they add you, right? Let's say you're wanting to work with doctors. You say, hey, Fred, you're a doctor. I do websites for doctors, right? Would love to chat. And then once they add you and you're in that one-on-one meeting, once you keep adding enough people and emailing them, right, and calling them, once you do that enough, then you're gonna, you tell them the story, and somebody's gonna give you a chance.
Okay. So what about cold email versus LinkedIn?
So it really depends is the horrible answer. I like LinkedIn the best. One of the best strategies I've looked at is posting, right? So if you post like 2 to 3 times a day and you add 20 people a day on LinkedIn, that'll get you 2 to 3 leads. And then if you're really good at posting content, right, then you'll get more leads. But at the end of the day, Joseph, it's the ugly answer is what are you good at, right? Are you better at cold email? Are you better at LinkedIn? There's a reason, Alex Hormozy says, focus on one thing for 100 days, because the one mistake we made that hopefully you guys that are taking actions out there aren't making is you're not switching up your actions every day, right? There's switching costs, and switching is key, right, for the model. But if you switch too much, you're never going to get any compound benefits. So for me, right, obviously I always focused on networking as my skill, right? And I said, I want to put in my 10,000 hours there. And I think I'm close to maxing it out, right? But for you, you might say, hey, I don't want to do networking. I want to do cold emails, right? And so you've got to figure out a way to put in the deliberate practice every day, right? So if LinkedIn is what you want to do, you can do that, right? If cold email, we've closed 2 clients through cold email. We had to send out maybe about 5,000 emails. But if you look at Alex Berman, right, he's crushing with cold email because he knows something that I don't, right? Versus networking, I'm very comfortable with that, right? Versus LinkedIn, we've had like 2 or 3 as well there. For Upwork is a great channel for us, right? Because I basically have systems that I use. So it all depends on what's good for you. For us, it was Upwork. I saw the light with Upwork when we hit 500,000. And basically that took us from half to about 1 million and et cetera.
Yeah, and I think how saturated your offer is and what niche you're targeting also matters. I don't know what Berman's latest offer is Galadon,
yep.
Which Berman, I would love to have you on the podcast. We could talk about Galadon all day and cold email a little bit. But I sent you his video about the billionaire mindset yesterday.
Really interesting. It's really interesting. And I think I responded to you about that as well, right? I think you're 100% right. You have to be in a huge opportunity vehicle, but at the same time, also you have to make sure that your skills match the vehicle and you don't try to eat an elephant, right, in one swallow, so to speak, right? So like you got to be going. I think I texted you this. The perfect opportunity is something like, let's say, for instance, private equity, right? Where you can start out as a grunt at the bottom, but still become a billionaire at the top if you just follow that industry. And I think industries are great to follow, and especially if you're looking at the opportunity that compounds, right? You can compound industry skills better than just like one type of company. But plumbing, right? For instance, right? Plumbing, you can maybe be a multimillionaire plumber, but it's probably harder to scale a plumbing company across the US. So all these businesses have constraints that make it really hard.
Yeah, I'd say industry greater than niche in general.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Okay. Yeah. So you did your outreach to your network. You got some people. How did you keep it growing from there?
I mean, really, I think if I had to start an agency today, I'd probably hit the $500,000 mark year 1 or year 2, right? And then the $1 million mark, right? Probably year 4, year 5, because I already know how to do it, right? But from here, right? Are you asking me like, how do I get to 8 figures?
not to 8 figures, but I'm trying to speak to the person that's just starting out, right?
Mm.
And they're probably wondering like, what's my first step? Okay, I texted like everybody in my network. It's like I only have 50 people, right? They texted
Oh
the
yeah.
50 people. They got like one, and it's not enough to pay the bills. Yada yada. So
Yeah.
what should they do? I mean, I would say that you should take that case study. Hopefully, it's a positive case study, and then go run with that and do outreach with that case study. Probably within that niche to begin with. So if you did it for like a laundromat, right? SEO for laundromats,
Yeah, there's
then
a million niches, right? Yeah, SEO for I like plumbers. Plumbing is a big niche, right? But whatever. Long story short, you've got the first thing I think you got to do in the early days is don't be afraid to take cheapo clients for $100 a month, right? But take them in a niche, right? In retrospect, I would have taken on 5 plumbers. I had a goal to take on my first year, take on 5 plumbers in the plumbing niche and done it for like $500 a month and didn't quit my day job, right? And basically, if I had those 5 plumbers, then I'd focus on mastering that industry and then going after that industry, right? So that's like what I would tell people is, A, first go after your network and see who you have in your network. Maybe it's all real estate agents. Real estate's a great niche, right? Maybe it's all whoever, right? Depends on your family background and your kind of background as well, right? Once you find a niche that you like, where you like the people, right? And ideally what they're providing for the world, you think it's valuable, right? Then basically you start servicing them and you need case studies. And I want to get 5 case studies for whatever service you have, whether it's SEO, whether it's website design, whether it's PPC, right? So you've got a little portfolio, you've got 5 of these clients. Now what you can start doing is you can start doing things like gifting, you can start networking more, right? And you can focus on that at the same time. The problem with this, Joseph, is me giving you the formula is you got to do all the shit concurrently, right? Like people, it's not like an ABC, it's not like a paint by numbers thing, right? You're running a business, but you got to service the clients while at the same time, you've got to constantly have some kind of cadence going out. And, like the easiest one is the leads book, right? 100 cold emails a day, right? For 100 days straight, right? You practice that and see where that gets you. You can switch after that, or you can stick with it, right? But over time, as you put the reps in, you'll start gaining momentum, and then you'll start figuring out what's best for you and your personality. One of my favorite quotes is I forgot who said this, maybe Gary Vee, but he says, I don't think Steve Jobs can run Facebook, and I don't think Mark Zuckerberg could run Apple. So basically, it's really interesting to me because I think people build the companies around their personalities. And even these are both tech entrepreneurs, right? So people at face value would think they're the same, right? But it's like the people you hire, the systems you use, the processes, right? Like they're all going to have their nuances, right? You just got to experiment and find yours. And I know it's a horrible answer. So I would say pick one of these 5: cold emails, referrals, right? Which is basically going through your networking event, right? You could do cold calls. You could do online bidding like Upwork. That's another easy one, right? And then number 5, I mean, heck, I can do whatever I want. I could fit a number 5, right? We could say, we'll just say content, posting online content, right? Like LinkedIn posts, right? Like which of these 5 do you think you'd be best at? And go and start doing 100 a day for 100 days. Build that portfolio on that niche. And in a year, I think if you do consistent work, you'll be farther than you thought.
Yeah, I think doing the free work is a big thing as well. A lot of people just skip to trying to charge clients, but they have no case studies. It's like it's like a chicken before the egg problem, right? Like you need to have some positive case studies that prove that you know how to do the work, or not do the work, but get an outcome for these people, for these clients. But to do that, you have to have somebody that gives you a chance to actually do some work on their business. So I would say that probably reaching out to people and saying, "Hey, I'll do this for free for free or at cost. Here's the cost."
Yep.
Would probably make a lot of sense. You'll get your 5 case studies in no time.
At least your first 3 to 5, right? I'm not saying do it for your whole life, but most people aren't willing to do 5 for free. And I wasn't. And the reason I grew slowly is because I wasn't willing to do that, right? And it was difficult for me that way. I should have done it for free, right?
So you change that?
I would have 100%. That was 100% a mistake, I think, on our behalf, right? Because we were kind of, just kind of struggling to find work, right? And we didn't understand the power of niches. We didn't understand, like the compounding effect, right? I made tons of mistakes. The other thing is, I was talking to Hike, my partner, earlier about this today. 2 people could start agencies, and one of them could run a $2 million business in 5 years. The other could run a $1 million business in 5 years. The only difference is one of them had happened to strike gold with Amazon knocking on their doors, and they closed him. The other one, maybe Amazon, like us, Amazon knocked on our doors. We couldn't close them because they were too big and we didn't figure it out. Right. So it's like finding these niches are key. So doing research on the right niches. You can be, actually a client of mine said this. He said, you can be a UPS driver and you can make $150,000 a year being a UPS driver. Or you could be a Domino's driver and you're making minimum wage. The skill gap between those two is one's just driving like a bigger truck, right? It's not 6 times harder to be a UPS driver versus a Domino's driver, right? But one of them is going to make 6 to 8 times more.
Different opportunity vehicle, pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Same skill set, right? Different niche, I would say, even different industry they're going after, right? And that obviously determines the opportunity vehicle. So these types of things, guys, I would not judge yourself too harshly early on in your business adventure. The thing that I see happen to business owners that are more, I don't know if you want me to talk to people that are just starting out, but the people that get to my level where they hit 1 million or 500,000, they get complacent, and that's what kills them, right? Like, I think for me, my key is not being complacent, always doing different experiments, trying different paths out, and not being so braggadocious and sure of myself that I get stuck, and that's a big issue that I see, because once you get to, let's say, 500,000, then your friends and family can't tell you anything. You're probably not talking to people that are doing better than you and doing more money than you. Or if you are, then maybe they're making you feel uncomfortable and you're kind of refusing to grow. And that's, I see as a major stuck point. But most people, they spend 3 to 5 years working hard, right? Being humble, like they'll get to the I think 300K, 250K mark, right? That's not unrealistic. It's just not sexy.
So what are you doing to grow the business right now? And how do you think you're going to take it from 7 to 8 figures?
Great question. The plan right now is focusing on mold remediation, right? So we have 5 mold remediation clients. I've got 4 meetings with mold remediation clients tomorrow, actually. So it's starting to catch on. I went to events, right? And people ask me, well, Vlad, why'd you pick mold? Is it like a super secret niche, right? Like, I've been part of these groups where you have all the people that are starting out, like, which industry is the secret industry? No, the truth is, go experiment, right? First, people don't like uncertainty, which is another advantage that if you can be comfortable with in business, it'll give you an advantage, right? The first year we tried all these different niches out. Mold ended up literally finding us by accident, because I looked up one day and I said, where do we have 2 to 3 case studies, right? Before that, unless you have some kind of background in the industry, right? We ended up going in and saying, let's go after naturopaths. That didn't work, even though we found a lot of success in health. Like, there's $100 million companies in healthcare, right? But then this industry, I personally just like, because I have the contacts there randomly, right? And then I did the cold calls, as you saw me do. We did cold calls together, guys, and to put in the sweat and elbow grease. So that's how we can take this thing to 8 figures, right? You can find a niche, and then you find a subset of that niche. So, like, dentists is not a good niche, right? People always say, oh, my niche is dentist. Like, everyone's a dentist, right? But if you go after dentists that do root canal surgery, right? Root canal specialists, or, that's a great niche. So you got to go after a niche within a niche almost. If somebody doesn't say, wow, that's specific, Vlad, wow, that's niche, you haven't gone niche enough,
Why are you targeting the mold remediation niche?
Yeah, well, like I said, right? So we found 2 to 3 case studies in the industry, right? And so since we had case studies here, we said, hey, we don't have to go out and build these case studies up. And then also, I like the people in the space, right? It doesn't have to, and then the space also is going to be growing, right? As long as you're not in a dying industry, right? As long as you're not in floppy disks, then you're going to be good, right? It's not it wasn't rocket science of why I picked mold remediation. It was just, I liked it. It was blue collar. It's not going away, right? I like the people. I had the case studies. I had good results. I was confident in that, and that was it, right?
And probably most importantly, the churn is low, because that's the bane of all agencies, right? You can either get fired or you can fire yourself, as I say. And the reason that is because you either do a bad job and you get fired, or you do such a good job that you get fired because they can't take, like, their brick and mortar business is not scalable. They're not just going to go build another place or go lease another location, fill up, with the staff and everything. So they say, hey, let's pause on the marketing for now. And they'll contact you in like 3 to 6 months when, the thing dips for whatever reason. And there you go.
Yeah, I think it goes back to my favorite Elon. Elon's one of my favorite entrepreneurs, and everybody's, I feel like, most people's. But basically, he talks about how you have to be 10x better. In mold remediation, I was thinking, yeah, we could be 10x better here, especially versus other agencies that don't specialize in it, right? Because of our proprietary software, because of our reviews, because of our client history, because of how we understand and appreciate the space, because of the work we're willing to do, right? That's why we're going after the industry, right? It's always multiple reasons. Yeah.
Got it. So I want to get to the juicy part, which is there's no better networker that I know than you. I always joke that you know more people than God, but how do you network? Tell the people how you network, how many people you meet and talk to, the caliber of people that you have in your network, because you literally have, I think it's like several billionaires that you have their phone number, right? And you've communicated.
I don't know about that. I've connected with billionaires before. It's true. I've connected with 3 billionaires in my life. And one of them was by accident. Two of them was engineered. And I don't think I'm the world's greatest networker. I think it is definitely, if like out of 10, I give myself a 9 out of 10 on that skill set, probably better than most. Right.
But that's incredibly high. Like that, yeah. 9 out of 10 for networking is incredibly high.
Yeah, I would say maybe
most people, it's kind of a double-barreled thing. Either you're an amazing networker or you're trash. Okay, not trash maybe, but you're like a 2 or a 3, right? I'm probably a 2 or a 3.
Yeah, I've seen people that are 2 out of 3, 5 out of 6, right? There's different levels. We can create like a leveling. Actually, how about that? I can explain networking as I've learned it in like a leveling system. So most people are zeros because they do 0 reach outs, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how you're a 0. Are you a 0 on networking out of 10? That's because you probably haven't done any reach outs, right? I'm making the system on the fly, right? To get to like the 2 to 5 stage is you do reach outs, but you do it inconsistently, right? So basically, like you maybe once a quarter, once every 2 months, you reach out to somebody that you think would benefit you for a specific reason. And you also try to maybe benefit other people, right? So that's like 2 to 5, right? 0 to 1 is maybe, like I said, you've reached out to 0 people or you've reached out to 1 person a year. Then 5 to like 8, right? These people, they network, they just don't do it consciously, right? And consistently enough, but they do it often. They don't have a system. So that's really the key thing, right? Is I have a system, I have processes that I refer to, right? And the key thing with my processes is you don't take the serendipity out of networking, because a lot of people, they're too systematized or they're not systematized at all, right? So I do have a system, right? So those are the 5 through 8s. Like they network and maybe they don't follow like a script or something. So basically, like if I was to say, hey, you can improve to get to the 5 to 8 level, which would be great for most people. Maybe try to run a meetup, right? Every month, run a meetup, right? And maybe invite somebody, right? Invite a good speaker that you think would add value to the group, and try to maybe connect 1 to 2 people once a week, right? If you're connecting 1 to 2 people weekly and you run 1 meetup, you're at the 5 through 8 level, you're going to beat out 70% of the population, right? And then we have somebody like me who used to run 8 meetups, like 6 meetups concurrently, right? I've ran 8 meetups before. I have like a system where I used to reach out to 1 7-figure person every day for like 2-3 years, because I wanted to have at least 100 plus 7-figure plus business owners in my network, which I do today, right? My goal is to connect 2 billionaires in my life. I've introduced 2 9-figure business owners. So a billionaire is a 10-figure business owner, right? So to get to like the 9 to 10 level, I think you got to have clear networking goals and look at it as a clear skill. And then also you understand that networking is just a form of currency, just like money, right? It's not bad or good, right? Most people think, oh, well, I'm not a networker, I don't want to waste anybody's time. It's like, yeah, because just like a massage therapist that sucks, you're going to waste people's time too, right? Everybody loves a good massage, just like everybody loves a good connector, right? So once you get to that level, I think people will start reaching out to you. And also you got to make sure you connect at least 3 or 4 people every single week to make sure you provide value from your network. And the way I think about myself is, this is from the book Give and Take by Adam Grant. He describes like one of the greatest networkers of all time called Adam Rifkin in the book. Is this guy is like the sun, and like all of his connections in the network are like the solar system he builds. And so that's what I like to do. I like to basically, like, everyone in my head is a quote unquote star, right? Pun badly intended, right? And then I say, okay, well, how does the star fit in the solar system, and what would make them useful for the rest of the solar system? And I want to be like the sun. I'm at the middle, right? So it's like, so then everyone in my life is like, oh, how'd you meet? Of course, Vlad, right? And then you constantly try to add value. And then eventually what happens is you've got this awesome support network that you can go to everybody from, if you want to meet Snoop Dogg to, hey, how do we get a billionaire, AI, whatever, right? Like you can talk to somebody. And a huge mistake I made early in my networking career, I would say, is I got a landscaper. I got his contact one day, and like a schmuck, it was me. I was a schmuck. I threw his card away. I was like, well, this is a landscaper, right? I was like 22 at the time, and I was dumb. I was young and dumb, right? And now I'm older and learning, is what I'll say. But basically, later, a good friend at the time of mine, who's an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, he said, hey, I want to start a landscaping app. Do you know any landscapers? And right then and there, Joseph, right, without a doubt, I was like, crap, I have this guy's card in my hand. Quickly, I called that guy. I remembered his name. I reached out to him. I apologized to him for what I did. And I said, I'm never making that mistake again. I'm never undervaluing, because everybody knows someone that knows someone. So anyways, that's my a long spiel.
We're going to get into all the details right now, but how do you organize your big network? Is it an Excel sheet, Google Sheet,
Yes,
Notion?
so I have a Google Sheet, and I have a Google Sheet right now, actually, 1,600 contacts, right? And I'm scrubbing it, right? And I'm going through for the agency for the 60-32 thing, right? To keep growing. But then in terms of, I also had a Google Sheet I created of 7-figure business owners, 7-figure plus business owners in my network, right? But also, what you can also do, right, is just do it off the top of your head. That's, I think, a great skill. Because I think basically if you say, oh, well, let me think, who's one 7-figure business owner I haven't talked to in 6 months plus, right? It's a better skill, because then you're training yourself to think of these types of people when you need them. And oftentimes when we have a problem and I'm trying to find somebody, what's interesting is I'll talk to Hike and he'll say, hey, don't you know a guy in this space? And I'll be like, which one? He's like, oh, Joe. And I was like, oh yeah, Joe. Okay, boom. And off I go. So keeping it organized, I think, is the biggest thing. So Google Sheet is what I use, and you can have a little description there. The other thing to note is when you're networking, a lot of people, when they network, they'll maybe talk to the same person every month, right? Or every week, right? And you're already doing that subconsciously, right? So you don't need to reach out to someone you talked to last week. The biggest thing that most people don't and won't do listening to this, and it's kind of sad to me, is they won't talk to people who they have not talked to in 6 months or more. Those are called weak ties. So I'm giving away the book, Give and Take by Adam Grant, right? But weak ties are the people you haven't spoken to in a really long time. And I did this actually subconsciously. I didn't know this until I read it in the book. But the people who have not talked to anybody in 6 months or more, they're the most useful for you, because they have the most new connections, they have the most new experiences, right? And they have great advice for you because of those new connections and new experiences, right? So they will help you. And I always like to say this whenever I talk about networking: people make the world go round. They can either completely solve your problem for you, so you never have to solve it again, or they can make your problem much easier to solve, right? Who wouldn't want to have that in their life? You know, I've had people make tickets go away for me. You know, that's huge. You know, so yeah.
Wonder who. Anyway, do you organize this Excel sheet by industry or by net worth? Not net worth, but revenue.
Yeah, I have.
What's your favorite? I have a guess.
Well, my favorite thing that I did was the 7-figure business owner thing, because I figured, hey, if I knew 100 plus 7-figure business owners, then I would actually run a 7-figure company. And fun fact, guys, so 2020, we didn't do 7 figures, right? 2021, we did 7 figures. Then 2022, we did it. This year, we're going to do it again, right? So I hosted a 7-figure plus business owner only meetup here in Seattle at a restaurant. And I said, the only ticket here is, guys, these are all 7-figure people who've spoken at my events and who I highly honor. I messaged 20 people, 14 showed, because they were like, wow, Vlad's actually personally curating. I said, I'm reaching out to you. I called people and I said, I'm reaching out to you because I'm personally curating you for this list of people. It was an awesome event. And it ended up actually having only one person that had a $500,000 company running the event. That was me. Everyone else was 7 figures plus. So it helped me get there faster. So that's my favorite kind of niche to go after, is certain, and it's actually not great, but certain revenue figures, right? But also like in the mold industry, right? I'm building out advisors there. I'm building out connections there, right? If I had to go after VCs, I could do the same, right? And the other niche trick that I think people should do is, I think everyone should at least once in their life throw a meetup. At least once in your life, learn the skill of throwing a meetup. It's scary when you first start. You know, Joseph, I know I think threw a meetup before, right? Like, I'm sure it was overwhelming when you first began, but then once you do it, you're like, okay, that's how these things go. If you have that skill of throwing a meetup, you'll be way ahead of most people.
The worst house party you'll ever go to is your own. I'll just say that. But so okay, more questions come to mind. So, how many people do you reach out to per day? Why do you? Oh man, I hate this garbage truck. Can you hear it?
No.
You can't hear it? Okay, noise canceling is awesome. So, okay, who do you reach out to every day? How many people do you reach out to every day? And then what is your opener if you don't know them?
Oh, great. So that's this. Okay, so why don't we?
Is it like, hey, you're gorgeous. Do you want to go on a date?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
I love how I was like, I'm juggling all your questions here. So basically, the first one is what is your opener if you don't know them, right? Then it's how many people, and then who, right? So let's start with the who. So basically, the who is whoever you want. I'm not you, right? For me, I wanted 7-figure business owners because I wanted to be one, right? Now I can do 8. So I actually was reaching out to 1 or 2 7-figure business owners every day. I got so good. I was talking to my mentor about it one day. He said, Vlad, I want you to do one. And I did this for like 2 years. He said, Vlad, I want you to do one thing for me. I said, what? He said, only reach out to 9-figure business owners and interact with them. So I was like, what? Right. And so he was like, yeah, 9 figures only. Right. He was like, maybe you can settle for like 8. He might not even said that. I think I just told myself that. But he said 9 figures plus. So I started doing that. But I kid you guys not. It's literally like if you buy whatever car, a Tesla, a red Tesla, shout out to Elon again, right? You get you're going to see Teslas on the road, right? You're going to see red, even if it's like octamaroon, you're going to say, okay, that's close to red, right? So I started doing 9 figures now. And it's surprising. Instead of getting 1 a day, I get maybe 1 a month. But a 9-figure business owner is like literally 100 times larger, right? And so I've got these insanely high-end like people giving me all sorts of feedback. And it doesn't have to be 9 figures, right? But that was something that I'm doing right now that I'm kind of doing passively, right? Because to be frank, I feel like I've reached kind of a good level of networking. Maybe I'll put it in, like the rest of my life, I'm going to keep networking, right? But I'll hit the 10,000 hours there naturally already. So I'm looking for other skills right now. But the who was the 7-figure business owners, right? I also have done potential clients. And the other thing is whenever you're going after your niche, right? So for me, you could do mold, you could do plumbing, whoever, right? Like let's say angel investors. A lot of people want to start companies out there. You need an angel investor. Or you want to start talking to them before you actually have the ask. That's another key, right? What you want to do is you don't want to just go after angel investors directly. Who do you know that knows angel investors? So it's the direct and the indirect contact. And when people are networking, this is a big one they miss, right? They miss that, hey, okay, well, Joseph isn't an angel investor. I'm gonna go to the next one. Yeah, but Joseph might know angel investors, right? So basically, that's the key, right? Now you're gonna get a whole bunch of people hitting you up after this, right? For angel investor contacts. But that's the key, right? You go after both. So you say, hey, do you know any angel investors, Joseph? He might say yes. He might say no. Hey, do you know anybody who might know them? Like anybody in the investing space? Oh, yeah, I know a banker Bill. Cool. Can you introduce me to that guy? And then for you, obviously, Joseph, what can I do for you? Who can I connect you to that's valuable? And you want to be a matcher. If they give you a connection, you give them a connection, or maybe they give you one, or maybe you give them one, but no more than one, right? Because I've had people rip me off for my network before. And then I learned this was a scammer. And everyone I was connecting them to thought like they were my best friend from kindergarten, right? So you start off matching, right? And you get to know the person and you vet them. Vetting is a whole different other thing, right? Like I hope for the best, but I prepare for the worst with vetting in the network, right? So anyways, the who, we went through that, right? And then your second question was how many. You could do 1 or 2. It depends on the niche. If you want to like do outreach 60-32, you can do 60 or you can do 100 cold emails a day, right? It depends on how personal you want to get, right? That's a big factor. That's the how many, right? It really depends. I hate to say it, And then the who, how many, and then the what do you say? This is something that people overthink, right? A lot of people, right? They want to say, what is the perfect thing? Like I want to pitch this, Jeff Bezos. Like I had a gal tell me, yeah, I know Jeff Bezos. I'm like, okay, why don't you go talk to him and talk to him about your idea? Well, I'm not ready yet. Okay, well, when are you going to be ready? I was like, why don't you start asking him, what does he want to see before, right? You even pitch him. Save yourself the time, right? Like go talk to the dentist that you want to pitch. Maybe you say, hey, before I pitch you, right, I want to know what are you looking for in a great client company, right? Because I want to get there, right? Because you might not know enough about the space. So they can help you get ready. They might not be your investor, but they'll get you ready for investors, right? So the messaging, a lot of people overthink, but I would say something personal in at least one line. And the best line I got from messaging was from a guy who actually cold emailed me. And I was like, this guy did his homework He said, Vlad, the goal of my message was to make sure you knew that that message was just for you, that it was for nobody else. If everybody else in the world would read it, they wouldn't understand it, but you understand it. I think that's great. The only problem is I think people can overthink that. So if you guys are just starting out, I'm not going to go into tons of details about what the message should be. Just start saying, hey, you know, I love this interview. Give them a compliment, reveal something a little bit vulnerable, and then give them a compelling reason to respond.
What was the message?
The message I've sent who? What do you mean?
That you got that was extremely personalized and perfect.
Oh, yeah. It was great. He said, Vlad, I listened to you in X podcast. And I've been on podcasts, right? And in this podcast, I noticed that you mentioned this book. I just read this book and I think it's phenomenal. Anyways, this is where I'm struggling, but I've been working on it. What is your advice? You know, are you guys open for this position? Because he's looking to get hired, right? So he's like, I'm trying to get interviews for this role, right? And he emailed me, and then he also CC'd my assistant. But the email directly did it for me. I was like, this is amazing because everybody else spams. And then, I think a lot of people, they overthink the messaging part. Yeah.
And when you network, do you typically want to get them on a phone call, or like what's your ask? Because the advice that I've gotten from other people is you find out, you figure out the who, right? So who you want to reach out to, you personalize it just like a cold email. You talk about what you'd like to talk to them about. And then, like you said, you give a reasoning as to why they should talk to you.
You want to add value to them. Yeah. That's the number one thing. You want to add value. You want it to make sense for them. And if they have this is what a billionaire told me, right? People asked, they said, hey, it's Charles Simone, right? Who started Excel. Like Bill Gates was like the best man at his wedding. We were all standing around talking in a circle one day. And there's couple questions asked, but here's were two. The first was, hey, when you and Bill Gates talk, right? What do you talk about? Is it who's got the bigger Lamborghini and what kind of things you guys have bought that day? He's like, no, we just talk about family, right? Like we're normal people. So that's a huge misconception, right? A lot of you guys think that whoever you're emailing is like at this level. That's really why years ago when I did Co-Founders Connect, a lot of times when I did my events, I'd say my whole goal is to take these people off their pedestals for you so you can access them and realize they're human like you, right? So that's the first thing, right, that I want to put out there for messaging. They're human like you. The second thing is, they were like, what should we email you? He said, it has to be compelling, right? And the more reasons you have for something being compelling, the better, right? Is there a familiarity? Did Bob say you should talk to them, right? If Joseph is telling Bob to talk to me, right, then that's a great one, right? So like, I'm going to actually challenge myself on the spot and give you like the ultimate strategy to meet whoever you want. But it's going to be difficult. So the first thing I would do is I would find multiple people that know that person. I actually did this before. It was a guy named Ryan, right, who ran a medcare company, right? And basically I had 3 people all in the same week reach out to Ryan. I was like, hey, can you just shoot him an email, say, hey, there's a guy that's named Vlad you should meet. Because like the first time somebody responded, he didn't respond, emailed us, he didn't respond. So I had 2 more people. So 3 people emailed him and they said, hey, you need to meet this guy, Vlad. And by the time I saw him, he was like, Vlad, I don't know what the hell it is about you, but people are saying, I need to know you. I'm really curious. It's never happened to me before. Right. So that's the first, it's like a big trick that takes a lot of work, right? Depending on the caliber, like we're going after big people right now. Right. So I have multiple people and you got to strike relationships with those people. Right. That's the first thing. Right. The second thing is you got to do research specifically on them themselves, right? How many times have we watched a podcast where people don't know who they're interviewing, right? That's horrible, right? So you have to basically do research on them. And then in that message, talk about how what they did impacts you. Now, my hack for this is I actually read, so one of my favorite hacks for reaching out to people because I reach out to so many different types of people, is authors. So I read their books, specifically if they're business owners. I say, hey, I read your book. Here are my notes for proof. So I've invested a lot. So you want to show them that you've invested in this relationship. You take it very seriously, right? So that's the second thing, right? If they have a book, if they have some podcasts, listen to 2 or 3 podcasts about them, right? And look, you might not ever get to meet this person, but at least you know about them, right? You've done your research so you can even start predicting what they would say, right? And you know people that are related to them, right? So that's the second thing. So first is the people that are connecting you. Number two is, you got to watch at least 2 podcasts, read their book if you can, right? This is like we're going after somebody big, right? And then the third is you got to map out which social networks are they on, right? Where do they frequent? And now what you want to do is you don't want to just go in for the ask. You do something I just guess interacting, right? You like a message of theirs, comment, do this like 10 to 15 times, right? And then if they have an in-person event, right, you can you can email them a week before the in-person event and say, hey, I'm going to be going there. Would love to connect with you, right? And then you can go and talk to them in person. They'll most likely know who you are, right? Or if you don't want to do the in-person thing, you want to speed run it through. You can go in and you can actually say, hey, I've these 3 people want me to connect with you. I've did this research. Here's my reason why I want to talk. Would love to appreciate your time, and you will get the meeting. And then once you get the meeting, that's like a whole different hour-long conversation, but you want to be very respectful of their time. You want to take notes on the call, and you want to actually show like what they gave you actually made a difference. Like people are very egotistical, right? And I know I am, right? And so like if you tell them something and they do the work and they say, hey, you're making a difference because you're important. Like I was literally talking to one of my 9-figure mentors, and he was like, why do you think people are helping you? And I was like, well, because they like helping others. He was like, no, it's ego, Vlad. He's like, I feel important talking to you because you're making a difference, right? So anyways, there's my I guess I was trying to make it advanced, but there's my formula of how I do it. And the biggest thing I would say is most people just don't. And that's where you'll be like 75% of people don't even make a conscious effort to start, right? Like getting into the nuances, don't overthink it. And unfortunately, I ended up giving you the advanced formula that Joseph wanted. But don't overthink it. Look at if you see my Twitter, I'll tweet at these really awesome people and they'll respond, right? And I'll retweet.
You've gotten Layla to respond. You've gotten Trevor to respond. I've gotten a lot of interesting people.
They're great. I've gotten amazing people. I can go through a whole Rolodex of people I've gotten to respond, right? Not just Layla and Trevor. They're great people as well, obviously. But the biggest thing is most people, if you look at interactions, right? Most people don't do that. The other thing, so like I said, we could talk an hour about networking, and I see we have a couple minutes left, so I don't know what your timing looks like on the podcast. But basically, a lot of people don't ask at all. And a lot of people also go for number one. Like, why is everyone going for Bill Gates? Who is Bill Gates' assistant, right? Like they deserve just as much credit and praise, right? Go build a little moat around the person you want to meet, right? And get to know them. And maybe by the time you build that moat, you realize you don't want to talk to the person, right? But this is deliberate. Like most networking are really haphazard. What they do is what we have a term here in Seattle called business card frisbee, where they'll take their business card and they'll just throw it out to people, right? The hardest part, I think, in life or entrepreneurship is not just basically, is being focused, right? Is not even just doing the action. Like most people don't take the action, right? So that's like 70%, but then the next 20% aren't thoughtful, right? So like we're talking to the people that take the action. The hardest part is actually being thoughtful with it and focusing, right? And I think in networking, right, like you want to focus on this activity and you want to work in the system and on the system, and you will naturally get better. And if not, you can always reach out to me and I can give you more tips, because you guys are going to be amazed by all the people that will respond to you, especially if you have low expectations.
Dude, Thank you so much for all the advice, for all the actionable tips. Where can people find you?
On Twitter, Vlad Gives, or Vlad Makatumian. Just add me on LinkedIn and tell me that you found me through the podcast, and don't hit me with a canned script, right? As long as you do your research, right, and you actually use my method to reach out to me. Hey, saw your podcast. I liked this, right? Here's something that I'm a little bit struggling with. Would love your advice. Love your words of wisdom, right? Like that's good. That's going to be enough, because everybody's hitting everybody with a canned script nowadays. So yeah, there's my advice to you and where you can find me.
There you go, guys. Vlad Makatumian, one of my best friends. Love you, dude. Thanks for coming on the pod.
Always a pleasure.